Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, and it's a really busy day in the House of Commons. There's many committee pieces to show. We've got an amazing lineup here set up, ready to go. Aaron, hit the like, share, subscribe. This is going to be fun. We have one of these lucky streaks on the go. We're getting good stuff from the committees because they're not always interesting. Today's is going to be Patty Hadu's in the hot seat. We're going to kick it off here with Raquel Dancho with the speech that she just gave. It's amazing. Anyhow, let's kick it off. Let's get this going.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Reprise des débats des honourable member for Kildonan, St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada is an amazing place that builds incredible things. This is something that I've learned over the last 6 months that I've been Shadow Minister for Industry for Canada. I've seen firsthand Winnipeggers building part of the F-35 fighter jet, the world's best, most powerful fighter jet, right here in Winnipeg. It's incredible what Winnipeggers are building. And then here in Ottawa, I have seen at Mission Control, a company here that's building a lunar rover. We have people in Ottawa who are building something that's going to traverse the lunar landscape and send information back to Canada. It is incredible what Canadians are building today and what they have built in history and what they will surely build into the future. In fact, I feel very hopeful about the future, especially when you consider how much natural resources this country has, how hardworking our people are, how educated our people are. There's so much to be hopeful for. And unfortunately, we are in very turbulent waters, Mr. Speaker, without land in sight. We have over 2 million people every single month in a country as prosperous as Canada going to food banks because they can't afford to feed themselves. The work that I've done locally in Winnipeg, reaching out to the food banks there, it is shocking what they're seeing. For the first time in their long history, they are seeing full-time dual-income households, two-parent, two-income households having to go to food banks because they can't afford to feed their families. That has never happened to two-income households to this degree in Canada. We're seeing half of my generation, the millennials, will never be able to afford a home, despite Canada being the second largest landmass on earth, with really everything you could possibly need to build houses. And we're working harder than ever, and yet we won't be able to afford homes. It's quite shocking that this is happening in Canada, despite all that we have, all that we're creating, everything at our disposal. And so why is this happening? Why does it feel like working people are spinning their tires? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is the economist-friendly word productivity. We are having a productivity crisis in this country. And, when I engage people in my community, often their eyes will glaze over about productivity. I totally get it. But we have heard, and I have heard from business leaders, from economists, from the Bank of Canada, that productivity is, in fact, one of the number one issues when it comes to standard of living in Canada, and it is in a crisis. In fact, Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada, just said last month, he said, quote, "What's most concerning is that unless we change something, our standard of living as a country, as Canadians, is going to be lower than it otherwise would have been." And when he was talking at the press conference giving this update about the Canadian economy, he went like this. He said the standard of living was going to be like this. Now it's going to be like this. So we're going to be poorer out of the mouth of the Bank of Canada governor. He's telling Canadians, and parliamentarians should all be very concerned about this, that we're going to be poorer as a country if we keep going down this trajectory. And of course, there's world factors in that, like the trade war, but many of these issues existed long before Trump 2.0 ever came along, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we saw this a year and a half ago in March 2024, also from the Bank of Canada. Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers said about productivity, "It's an emergency. It's time to break the glass. It's time to sound the fire alarm. It's time to evacuate because the productivity is so bad." But again, how does this relate to everyday people, Mr. Speaker? Again, it's not about, I think most people think when we say, oh, we have a productivity problem, they think, well, what do I have to work harder? That's actually not what it means. Nicholas Vincent from the Bank of Canada as well, the external deputy governor, said, quote, "Canada's affordability problem is really a productivity problem. If we want to make things more affordable, we need to raise our incomes, of course. And the way to grow our incomes, he said, is by increasing our productivity." So it is mission critical that we fix this productivity problem, and the results are very stark. In fact, after 10 years of Liberal government and the way that they approach the economy, we've had very poor results when it comes to productivity. In fact, it has barely grown at all since they've been in power. And when we often compete with the U.S., obviously they're our biggest buyer for our trade, but they're also our biggest competitor when it comes to businesses selecting where they're going to build factories, where they're going to hire more workers, where they're going to innovate. They're our biggest competitor, and they're in fact our productivity is, in fact, 30% lower than the U.S. And, in fact, in real U.S. manufacturing, the construction investment has been up over 300% since 2008, and Canada's has been flat since that time. So we're competing against a country that is investing 300% more in real manufacturing than us. And, in fact, U.S. firms invest triple what Canadian firms do. So a Canadian firm will be investing about $4,100 per worker annually in our workforce. And the U.S. is investing over $12,800 per worker annually. So for people to understand, let's say you work at an office and everyone works on their computers. It's as if the person beside you is working on modern computer technology. They have AI, they have virtual calling, they have a smartphone, all of those things. And you're just as smart as them, you work just as hard as they do, but you're trying to do the same job working on dial-up internet on a 1990s computer. That's the reality when we talk about investing in our workforce and what we're up against with the behemoth that is the U.S. And we used to be more on par with investment per worker. Our productivity used to be a lot closer. And now they're just leaps and bounds ahead of us, especially after the last 10 years. And in fact, it's so bad that if we were to just catch up to where the Americans are in terms of productivity, individual per capita GDP, per capita output into the economy would be $20,000 higher per worker in Canada. That's how much it would generate in economic growth and productivity. And obviously, as we've heard from the Bank of Canada, when we increase our productivity, we increase our incomes, and we increase the standard of living for Canadians. So why is our productivity suffering so much? Because it's not from a lack of effort. It's not from a lack of innovation. It's not from a lack of enterprise or education. One of the main causes is the regulatory burden. In fact, companies spend at least $51 billion a year meeting regulatory requirements, according to the CEO of the Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada. He said that at Industry Committee, where we're currently studying productivity. And the Business Council of Canada said, quote, businesses across every sector, from natural resources to housing to finance, rank regulation as the single biggest barrier to new investment in Canada. So regulation is a big, big factor of why we're not producing as efficiently as other countries, predominantly the United States, our largest competitor. And again, why is this? Well, we've seen the results over the last 10 years. As I've said, under Liberal governance, the country's productivity has been relatively flat. So it's basically, if you think of Canada as one worker, you know, over time we work hard, our wages, we hope, go up. That's mostly the career trajectory of your average working Canadian. So it's as if Canada, or as a worker, has not got a raise, has not improved their productivity, has not gotten more experience, has not created more value somehow since 2014. This country has not, in essence, got a raise since 2014, despite all of the inflation. That's one way to really understand the magnitude of what we're facing under 10 years of really poor economic performance led by government policies at the federal level. And so we see things like, infamously, the Liberals' Bill C-69, I think, really shows what this government is about. They have made it incredibly hard to build large projects. In fact, they've denied this for a long time. We've been banging this Bill C-69 drum, but it was really proved in large measure by the new Liberal leader, the new Prime Minister of Canada, under the same, governing the same bunch of Liberals who've been voting on these policies for over a decade, because he made a new level of bureaucracy to just go over top the disaster of a mountain of bureaucracy they've created that made it very difficult to be successful in this country as a large creator of manufacturing or resource development. So they just built a new layer of bureaucracy on top, and they're going to pick which special companies get to go ahead and skip all those regulatory burdens that they've created that all the other companies are going to have to go over. So that's just one example. They also have the industrial carbon tax, of course, that increases the price of energy on Canada's largest manufacturers. It's more expensive to make steel here because of something like the industrial carbon tax. Again, our taxes need to be competitive. Our regulatory environment needs to be that when a business is looking, like an auto sector business is saying, we could expand in Canada or we can expand in the U.S., where are we going to go? Where we're going to go where the best bottom line is for us. And so they're going to look at where they can get the fastest permits, where there's the least regulatory hurdles, where they can make the most profit so they can hire more people and invest in more technology to be more efficient and have more output. And time again, long before Trump 2.0 came along, businesses were upping and leaving for the U.S., or they were expanding rather than here, they were expanding down there. And now that Trump 2.0 has came along, it's exacerbated all of this mess that the Liberals have created over a decade, impacting the cost of living. So really, when we're looking at this, we saw in the last election, the Prime Minister and the Liberal leader said he was going to really be the one to change this, and that he was going to bring forward a transformational budget. And in fact, we've seen that that's not really the case. They've made a few tweaks around the margins. They've finally, after a decade, said that productivity is a problem and we want to work on the economy. Thank God. But they've only made a few tweaks around the margins. The only party, Mr. Speaker, that's really going to make the transformation to the regulatory and taxation burden we have in this country so that Canada can have a better standard of living is the people that have been saying the same thing about this for 10 years, and that's a Conservative majority government in this country. That's what we need to transform the economy and increase the standard of living and the opportunities for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Then comments. Question en commentaire, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you were to compare the two previous administrations, Justin Trudeau to Stephen Harper, based on what the member was saying, Justin Trudeau created double the number of jobs as Stephen Harper did in a shorter period of time of governance. So we're talking 1 million versus 2 million. Now, if you since we've had the new government, we have a Prime Minister that has negotiated with the provinces, Indigenous leaders, building a one Canada economy. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that we get the best deal for Canada and Canadians with respect to the Americans deal. And, Mr. Speaker, we have a Prime Minister that is traveling the world, increasing exports, getting hundreds of millions of dollars of commitments coming into Canada, whether it's China, Korea, Philippines, India, the Emirates, England. We have legislation on England. I'm wondering if she...
I have to give time to the member to respond. The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad that the member for Winnipeg North has got up to engage me in debate, because no one in this House has stood up and said more words defending the Liberal record than that member over the last decade. No one has defended their productivity decline in this country. No one has defended the policies that have impoverished Canadians, that have sent businesses south, more than that member. So I certainly won't take any lessons from him about economics, since he, more than anybody else, has stood here. We've had to listen to him for a decade defending their record, and their record has been 2 million people going to food banks and thousands of manufacturing jobs going south.
Questions and comments. Question en commentaire, the honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
And I definitely appreciate what my colleague has brought to the floor today. Yesterday, we were fighting in this place for Canadians' jobs, and she's talking about productivity, while the other side of the floor said, well, we're investing in them in the meantime. In other words, they are giving the handouts. And we heard over and over again, Canadians don't want handouts, they want their jobs. They don't want them feeding their children, they want to be able to feed their children themselves. So how does that fit into this situation?
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
I think the member for the question, I think she's hitting on something really important about how Liberals versus Conservatives would be approaching this situation. So Liberals look at the economy like it's some big switchboard that they get to control, and if they just turn this knob and pick this industry and dump billions of taxpayer dollars here, maybe here, but not over here, that they'll create this prosperous environment. And as I outlined, and as many economists have outlined, their approach to the economy does not work, and we've just seen more of the same in that, just a little bit of lip service towards productivity and a few tweaks around the margins for the business sector. And so what we would be doing as Conservatives is looking, how do we create the most business-friendly environment in the world? How do we have companies choose Canada to create all their goods and services? How do we make it so that they can expand their manufacturing businesses here, that it's more competitive and more efficient to do so than in the U.S.? That would be our number one focus during this trade war. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that.
Questions and comments. Question en commentaire, la députée.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I listened to my honourable colleague's speech, and I'm wondering how he feels about the $620 million, which will go directly to housing and shelters for women. So that will help combat gender violence. I'd like to hear my colleague's thoughts on this effort and the importance of it.
Appreciate the question from the member, but the reality is after 10 years of Liberals and their crime policies, their soft on crime policies, we have seen incredible rates of increase on sexual assault and sexual assaults on children in this country. And a lot of that, again, we have to look at the criminal code and how this government views the criminal code. And they repeatedly, time and time again, go soft on the people that are violating women, that are abusing women. In fact, I brought forward a bill that would have made it so that a peace bond, when a woman is abused, she has to somehow get the courage and the safety to go to a judge and ask for a peace bond. I put forward a bill so that that peace bond would last at least 2 years, so she wouldn't have to go through it 12 months later. Again, she's got kids, she's got a life, she's fighting for her safety. These Liberals voted that down at the Status of Women Committee. So I need no lecture from this government about fighting for women and the safety of women. We are the only party that's going to lock up the perpetrators, Mr. Speaker. And time again, we have put that forward with legislation that has been voted down by these Liberals.
Resuming debate. Reprise du débat dans le député de Rivière des Milliers.
All right, gang, we're going to drop over to committee now. We've got Patty Hadu in the hot seat at the humanitarian committee investigation, and she's going to get beat around. Patty Hadu she's a troll. Anyhow,
$150 payment that will help with disability tax credit application costs. Mr. Chair, this is the work of building a fairer, more resilient Canada, one that protects workers, empowers families, and builds a strong future for the next generation. And I look forward to our conversation today.
No, you won't.
Thank you, Madam Minister. We'll now begin with the first 6-minute round of questioning, beginning with Ms. Falk. Ms. Falk.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for making time to be here today. All families deserve equal access to parental leave, but adoptive and intended parents remain at a disadvantage under our current EI system. In the previous Parliament, I introduced a private member's bill to create a new 15-week attachment benefit that would deliver parity for adoptive and intended parents. It is also recognized the importance of securing early attachments and the role that support plays in healthy long-term outcomes. As you know, my bill did not receive the royal recommendation it needed to proceed. Instead, your government introduced its own version of the bill, copied in principle, but with one critical difference. It would only come into force on an order in council. So despite that, the measure received unanimous support in the House, and Bill C-59 received royal assent on June 20th of 2024. However, it's now almost a year and a half later, 17 months, and parents are still waiting for this benefit to be rolled out. Parental leaves have come and gone, and in the meantime, with families continuing to miss out on these important additional weeks with their kids, and Parliament unanimously agreed that they should have this. Time is a precious commodity for any new family, so adoptive and intended parents simply want the time they deserve with their children. Minister, on what exact date will adoptive and intended parents finally receive the equal access to the leave that Parliament had promised them?
Well, thank you very much, for that question, but also for the advocacy for adoptive and intended parents. I've just been consulting with my deputy. That work is underway right now. I don't have an exact date for you, but I look forward to continuing our work together.
What concrete steps have been taken in the rollout of this benefit?
So the work is happening with the department to plan for that benefit, and I hope that when it appears in a budget forthcoming, that you will vote for it. In fact, your party has a
if you can't
record
provide a
of
date
voting
today,
against
can you
the
please
measures that
tell
you
me when you
advocate
can
for.
provide a date that this will be rolled out?
We'll certainly be.
It's been 17 months.
We'll certainly
we
be
did
working.
the work. I did the work. My office has done the work on this.
Sorry, we have a point of order.
Sorry, I think it's very hard for the interpreters when the minister or when the speaker is being cut out and there's two people speaking at the same time.
Thank you. I would remind all members to be conscious of the interpretation. Ms. Falk, you have the floor.
So we did the work for this. We had an end date that it would come into force. Your government copied the bill in the principle and then failed to deliver it. So your government had misled adoptive and intended families that this was going to happen, and it hasn't happened, and you can't provide me a date of when this is going to happen. That's unacceptable. When is the date that intended families and adoptive families can expect this?
If you're interested in continuing this work together, you have my commitment that we'll include you in the work.
But that's, Minister, I can't say that that is a true statement. Your party voted against this bill when I brought it forward. Your party refused to provide the royal recommendation that was needed for this bill to proceed. And then you copied the bill in principle and have not implemented in 17 months. Some of these children are now almost 2 years old. It's completely unacceptable. When is the date that this will come into effect?
Member would know that private members' bills that require the government to spend money are usually not adopted, whether it's from a Conservative member or from a member of Parliament from the Liberal government.
You don't
so
have
your
a date.
question is a bit disingenuous, Member of Parliament. I will say this, though. I've just made the commitment to you that the government intends to uphold its commitment and that we will work with you.
I'm moving on to another question. Does your department have an internal timeline that it is using to guide the implementation?
Department is at work right now on looking
at...
So
more than 17 months then?
I certainly will ensure that you're kept abreast of this work, MP.
With all due respect, Minister, I mean, this isn't an entirely new program that is being developed. This is literally mirroring the maternity benefit that women who birth a child receive. And adopted and intended parents already contribute to the EI system. They already have access to the EI parental benefit. And adding an additional 15-week category should not require months, and in this case, almost years of delay. So, Minister, if this issue is not political, can you just be honest with the families that are still waiting as of why they are still waiting, if this is not a political issue?
I look forward to your support when we do introduce this, whether it's in a budget or another measure, and I certainly hope your party will vote for it.
It was in the fall economic statement in 2024. That was a long time ago, and there's been no movement on this whatsoever. I think that's absolutely unacceptable. Would you not agree that that's unacceptable?
I have made the commitment to you, I think repeatedly now, that we'll make sure your office is included in this work.
Okay, thank you. Minister, has ESDC completed all internal investigations into ESDC employees who fraudulently applied for CERB while fully employed?
Turn to you.
Yes, we have completed.
All completed?
That one.
How many ESDC employees in total were investigated for improperly receiving CERB?
I would have to get back to you with the total number investigated, but
please provide that
the
information
total
to
number
the
that we took action against was approximately 50.
And you'll provide that information to the committee?
Yes.
Okay. So how many were cleared and how many had security clearances revoked and how many were formally terminated?
Again, that information is available. I'd be happy to provide it to the committee. It was approximately 50 employees that we took action
and
against.
One last question. Were any cases referred to the RCMP or other law enforcement agencies for potential criminal investigation? Please provide that information.
Yes,
to the committee.
And
if so, what the status of those referrals are, please.
Thank you. Falk, Ms. Goodtrack.
Thank you.
Ms. Goodrich, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, for being here today. So since 2017, baby formula has risen 84% in Canada, according to StatsCan, and yet, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's risen by only 42.9%. Why is the inflation on this product double in Canada, and does that concern you?
It does concern me. It does concern me when a product like baby formula, which is not easily replaceable, is that expensive. And we've had a number of exchanges in the House. Obviously, there are things that the government can control. There are things that the government cannot. One thing we can control, though, is increasing available money for individuals who are needing to purchase baby formula.
Has this been discussed at Cabinet?
In fact, Health Canada has actually made some regulatory changes to make it easier to get baby formula into this country, and I would encourage you
I'm
to
well
ask
aware.
the
I
minister.
actually advocated for that when we were dealing with the formula shortage before. And what I have seen from this government, from the last government, for the last 10 years is no action, no real care. We are in a crisis. Parents are paying $50 for a container of baby formula. In 2020, that exact same container of baby formula cost $29. The amount that your government is providing to families has not gone up by that percentage. So you can't continue saying, oh, but we're giving all this money to families. We need to deal with the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is food is too expensive, and baby formula is not replaceable for families that rely on it. It is absolutely irreplaceable.
So, Mr. Chair, in fact, the Canada Child Benefit, which your party has voted against any increase since 2016, has kept up with inflation. It is one measure that has deeply alleviated poverty for children in this country. In fact, between 2015 and now, 2019 actually, child poverty rates declined by 42%, and we continue to see an alleviation of poverty through a number of measures. You have an opportunity, Member of Parliament, to stop fighting against families. Families know that there are challenges. With all due respect,
Minister, 84% increase in 8 years on baby formula, that is far, far higher than CPI. So no, you have not done what you need to do. And the real problem is that we are reliant on imports for baby formula in Canada, massively, massive imports. It took Health Canada months to get their act together to allow us to import baby formula from Europe when we were in crisis. Families were scraping by. There are families right now that are buying baby formula in open tubs because that is the cheapest way for them to do this. I've had families contact me saying that they are buying what they know is stolen formula. Baby formula is one of the #1 stolen food items. It is kept under lock and key in Canada.
And against the increases to Canada Child Benefit, against the kinds of things like early learning and child care.
Because they're not working.
As we pointed out.
If they were working, 1 in 3 kids would not be the clients at food banks.
In fact, if they're not working, their Canada Child Benefit is actually even higher. So for 0 to 3, those children would be receiving up to $7,000 or more a year in Canada Child Benefit, and yet indexed to inflation, and you vote against it time and again. So I'm just curious why you think that extra money wouldn't be helpful to a family that you're describing.
What I am saying to you, Minister, is the inflation on baby formula, because your guys' government has refused to do any real action to make anything better on this file. And when I ask about this in the House of Commons, do you know what I get? School food program. Babies don't go to school. Families that rely on this do not have another option. There are countless families, whether they're adoptive, whether they can't breastfeed for some reason or they choose not to, this is their only option for feeding their kids. And your government just keeps saying, we're giving all this money, why can't families figure this out? Well, this is a failure on your government, period.
Well, actually, in fact, one of your members of Parliament derided our socialist programs just the other day to talk, when we were talking about things like the Canada Child Benefit. We understand that the school food
when you
program
go
doesn't...
to other places... No, that's not a point of order.
Appel au règlement. Vous parlez bien en même temps. Trop d'interruptions, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le Président.
Continue. I would ask all members to please respect the translators who have to translate your comments and conduct yourself accordingly. Ms. Goodrich, you have the floor.
So I guess I'll go in a slightly different vein. Have you discussed this issue with the Prime Minister? Yes or no? Okay, have you specifically talked to him about baby formula?
The Prime Minister and I regularly discuss affordability. In fact, I am grateful that the Prime Minister has kept affordable programs, all of the care programs, intact in the budget that you voted against.
I have Madame Gill, a point of order.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, once again, I have a concern for the interpretation. We're being told that it's often inaudible, so I hope we can have enough time on either hand.
Merci,
Madame
Gill.
Le micro n'était pas allumé.
Thank you, MP Gill. The microphone was not on, I'm told.
Time to question, but I would ask them to respect the fact you ask a question and give an opportunity for a reasonable start and an answer. You have the floor, Ms. Goodrich.
So very specifically, Minister, have you specifically talked to the Prime Minister about the inflation on baby formula and the crisis it's creating in families? Yes or no?
Budget 2025.
No. Budget. I asked yes or no.
Budget I have spoken with the Prime Minister extensively about affordability issues that
Specifically
families are
baby
facing,
formula?
and that's why in Budget 2025, all of the care programs are protected. All of the affordability measures are protected. In fact, there's a tax cut for 22 million Canadians that you voted against.
So
it's
the
different to say that the Prime Minister...
Ms. Goodrich, Madam Minister, your time has gone over, and I did pause for all the points of order. But then again, I remind, one cannot dictate to the witness what the answer should be. You can phrase the question as you choose. It is the witness that chooses to provide the answer. With that, we'll move to Madame de Rochier for...
When it closes down.
Minister, Budget 2025 proposes to, quote, generally limit access to the Canada Student Grant for full-time students to students attending public educational institutions and not-for-profit private institutions. Could you please explain to us why the government is proposing to withdraw student grants from students attending most career colleges and other kinds of institutions that are private?
Well, thanks very much. In fact, most programs are currently ineligible through career colleges. Programs that are 2 years and under have been ineligible before. What we want to make sure is that the public money goes to public institutions, for one, and for two, that we can reduce the practice by some career colleges of extending programs from 2 years to 4 years so that students are eligible, and yet it takes them longer to graduate, sometimes without any further accreditation.
Thank you for your response, Minister. I guess I would say back that this money doesn't go to the institutions, it goes to the students. And there are programs like to become a chiropractor, to study traditional Chinese medicine, where there simply aren't very many, if at all, opportunities to study this at public institutions. So I don't think anyone's accusing those programs of being artificially extended. I mean, you can't become a chiropractor in 1 year of study, obviously. What would you say to a student who comes from a lower middle income background, aspires to one of these careers, recognizes there's demand for that career, and is concerned about the budget measures which say that they will no longer have access to grants that students studying at any university would have access to?
What I would say is that we are ensuring that students who need financial support continue to be able to do so. We are making sure that Canada Student Grants are available to students that need that. The minister will have an exemption.
Respectfully, Minister, you're not, though. Like I just gave you the example. You've got a low-income young person who says, I've always wanted to become a chiropractor. Through no fault of my own, the institutions that offer that course of study are organized in a certain way. And because of a change in this budget, I will no longer be eligible for student grants. You've got people that rely on the services that are provided by folks in this area. What would you say to them? Because you're clearly making a change that makes that student no longer eligible for grants that anybody else would be eligible for at going to a different kind of program of study.
Well, I would say that if the profession is concerned about the changes in a circumstance where it's a very narrow circumstance like you're describing for chiropractic, that the minister does have an exemption authority, and I'm happy to work with the applicable programs. But I can say that what we do know is that there is a higher default rate for student loans for career colleges, that we have seen in some cases students graduating from 4-year programs that used to be 2-year programs, and that ultimately we believe that public funds should go to public institutions.
Yeah. respectfully, Minister, I mean, my mother was trained as an occupational therapist. When she did it, it was an undergraduate program. Now it's a master's program. There are many, many, many university programs that used to be available for shorter durations of study or used to be available at the undergraduate level that are now master's programs. You're describing a phenomenon of extension of the requirements of getting certain credentials. I think that's an interesting issue to discuss, but it is clearly not an issue unique to the career college world. It's an issue that has been much discussed in the context of universities as well. And it seems to me that this budget has made a political choice to single out those students, and it's not a small number, those students pursuing particular vocational programs, and say you will no longer be eligible for these programs, even while anybody who studies at a university will still have access to those grants. Why are you singling out students pursuing programs that the government doesn't want to fund anymore for discrimination in the grant program?
I think the political choice that was on display for all Canadians to see was your party voting against $1.5 billion in student supports and youth supports. Canada student loan increase, interest forgiveness. The Conservative Party voted against students, voted against
this
youth
is not
people
an answer, Minister.
Time and again. And I think that's
I know
the
we
political
disagree, but can you
choice
answer the
on
question?
display
These
here.
are serious questions on behalf of students who will be discriminated against by this policy.
Your time has gone by. Ms. Fancy for...
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us today. I know in our previous question line of questions, we were talking about bigger kiddos. Well, myself, as a former educator, I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about littler kiddos in regards to early learning and childcare. So, Minister, I know I ran within my election about the importance of community and what that can be, and how do you have a thriving community? Well, I guess my grandfather always used to say that you take care of the young and you take care of the old, and everyone else in between will take care of themselves. So in terms of children, I was wondering if you could talk to us about the impact of affordability with childcare. Right? There's also a broader economic benefit here. I was wondering today if you could speak to us about how the expansion of early learning and childcare is supporting workforce participation, especially for moms like myself, and what the long-term economic impact of these investments look like.
Well, thank you for, I think, a really great question about something that's quite historic in this country. Affordable childcare. Many economists had talked about this for a long time and talked about not only the value of this to young brains, as you're talking about, and young children, but the economic policy that it represented. And I mentioned in my remarks, we have the highest workforce participation ever in the history of our country by women, generated in large part because of affordable childcare. We have, on average, about a $16.50 day rate. In some cases, provinces have reached $10 a day. In other cases, they're working to get there. We have families participating regardless of income level, and although some people have criticized this, in fact, women lose a high degree of productivity capacity when they are staying at home. It's a choice for sure, and I respect it. In fact, I think I might have taken that choice had I been able to do so, but I was a single mom and relied on affordable childcare to be able to pursue my ambition. And to be able to support my family. And in fact, that's what we're hearing. We're hearing families say this is a game changer. Fees have gone down in some cases. I was at a public event, and a woman came up to me, and she was a professional, and she said, look, we're saving $800 a month on each child. So $1,600 a month, that's back in their pockets as a result of affordable childcare. So it's also a huge affordability measure. I've read quotes in the House of Commons. People have been able to pay down their mortgage. People have been able to save for a house. People have been able to go back to school. All the while, provinces and territories are doing a fantastic job keeping quality in the system. And we've worked with a network of professionals, as you know, to make sure that that quality remains. And I'm really just want to give all of the provinces and territories a huge kudos for the work that they're doing to
its words when it comes to supporting unionized labor and its use of Section 107. Traditionally, Parliament would convene to end a strike, and through that process would provide a rationale to Canadians as to why they're sending employees and employers to binding arbitration. During the Air Canada flight attendant strike, you noted on Twitter that you would be invoking Section 107 to send Air Canada flight attendants represented by CUPE and Air Canada to binding arbitration. Personally, I would be willing to vote in a special sitting of Parliament to ensure that Canadians are informed on why strike action is being ended. This was a very drastic step. Why do you choose now to use Section 107, or this government choose to use Section 107 repeatedly instead of bringing these labour disputes to Parliament?
Thank you very much for your question. And first of all, I'll just note that 97% of the disputes that come to the Federal Mediation Service are solved without any work stoppage at all. And I just want to give a huge congratulations to the FCMS. They're incredible individuals that are doing this work every single day with bargaining parties. In terms of support for labor, I would note that although I understand your question, what we have done since we've taken office in 2015 is actually strengthen the rights for unions. And in fact, one of the first acts I had the privilege of passing, although others had done some work on it as well, was a bill that reversed the harmful Harper-era legislation that made it harder for people to bargain and organize 377 and 525. It was a huge ask of the labor movement. We immediately got to work, and it was the first piece of legislation we actually passed in the House of Commons in 2015, was to protect unions' right to organize.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to move on to my next question. We recently saw Stellantis use foreign labor for the construction of the Nexstar battery plant in Windsor. It shut out Canadian tradespeople, and Stellantis has recently hinted that they're planning to move Canadian jobs in the auto sector down to the United States. This government gave them billions of dollars of taxpayer money and Canadian market access, and all we've gotten in return was jobs for other countries. What is this government doing to protect Canadian tradespeople?
I think that the support of the Canadian Building Trades Union, both of our budget and of the Major Projects Office and approach, is really an indication of how building trades are seeing this government act in their interests. And I would say that building trades in particular, unions across the country know that it's important that we protect Canadian industry and we protect Canadian workers. In fact, the Buy Canada announcement was celebrated by a number of unions, including Unifor, including LiUNA. And I think the union movement knows that we will continue to have their back. We're working with the Building Trades Union right now on the significant skilled trades shortage that we see across the country.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to move on to my next question. This government has been speaking a lot about its Buy Canada policy and nation-building projects. Recently, this government announced the next group of projects that are being considered by the Major Projects Office, and which includes the KSI Lism's LNG project. Now, what I find interesting about this is that this project is majority owned by a U.S. company and is to be built by Samsung Heavy Industries in South Korea and floated over to BC. This is more jobs for other countries. If this government isn't supporting Canadian labour with Canadian materials or Canadian companies, how is this project a Buy Canadian national building project?
So I will just remind people that the projects that have been announced have been referred to the Major Projects Office, and the Major Projects Office knows that the priority of the Government of Canada is to make sure that Canadian workers and Canadian companies see the benefit. I will also say that that is a majority Indigenous-owned company, and so there is am I right on that? Indigenous ownership. Indigenous ownership is actually a priority of the Major Projects Office.
I think
everybody at this table knows that there will be a significant opportunity through the major projects that have been announced as referred to help ensure that there's a job creation across this country.
Does that mean this won't get built? It's strange to me that it even got referred if it's going to be built out of our country.
What I would say is that every major project will be that has been referred to the office is a project of national interest that the Government of Canada will be looking for ways to support. The Major Projects Office has an important job, though, to do, which is to make sure that the project is viable, it's economically viable, that it uses Canadian labour, there's benefits to the Canadian economy, and that there is benefits to Indigenous people.
Thank you,
and I would just say
Reynolds.
that
Mr. Reynolds,
we're on the cusp of some exciting things.
But I will hold you close to the time. Monsieur Joseph,
Mr. Joseph, for 5 minutes.
Please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome back to committee, Mr. Perot. The riding in which a Canadian living abroad votes in is determined on their last place of address in Canada. The Elections Canada application for registration to vote abroad requires a prospective elector to provide proof of Canadian citizenship. However, the application does not require that a prospective elector provide proof of their last place of residence in Canada. So, without such proof, how does Elections Canada verify that a prospective elector is providing their actual real last place of residence in Canada and voting in the appropriate riding?
So thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Chair, the regime is designed in recognition of the fact that people living abroad and who have lived abroad perhaps for a long time often will not have documentary proof of residence. So their application serves as the means to determine where they will vote. The critical point is that once they have registered on the international register at a particular location, they may not move that. They cannot change until they come back to Canada to reside. And so there is no opportunity to further, change electoral districts for perhaps political considerations.
So, and I take your point about once they are on the registrar, but what proof or verification is there before they get onto the registrar to vote in a specific riding?
As I indicated, there is no verification. There is an offense for making a false and misleading statement in the application. And if there is evidence that comes up that the statement made by the applicant was wrong, of course, then there may be consequences. But that regime is designed in recognition of the fact that there may be no such evidence to produce the verification.
Okay, so just so that I'm crystal clear, Elections Canada it takes the prospective elector at their word, subject to there being evidence that, in fact, they are voting in the wrong riding.
Correct. And that is the regime designed by Parliament for the reasons that I indicated.
Now, as you noted, once someone is registered, they remain registered. And as I understand it, what that means is that a special ballot kit will be sent to that address at the time that the writ is issued. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Okay. So what steps are taken to ensure that the special ballot kit actually makes its way into the hands of the prospective elector, given the fact that it could have been several years since they applied to be listed on the registrar at that particular address?
That's a very good question, Mr. Chair. So every 12 to 18 months, we issue a confirmation process. So we write to all people who are on the register to confirm their address. And if they do not reply, we take it then that they have moved and we remove them from the register. So it is regularly verified. So there will not be several years before that occurs. The other thing that is important to know, of course, is that if a kit is issued to a wrong address, for example, because a person no longer resides there, the person, there is a number of elements of information that need to be completed on the outer envelope, which are then matched with the information that we have in the register to make sure that only the right person actually is using the kit.
Okay. So, two things. First, with regards to the verification that is sent out, you said about every 18 months.
12 to 18.
12 to 18 months, that's an email that is sent?
Correct.
And if you don't hear back, just to clarify what happens?
Then we would remove the elector from the register, and they can apply again to register.
And does that happen fairly often?
They have a month to reply, but yes, we do have people who are removed from the register.
Okay. And you then spoke about the special ballot kit. So once an elector fills out their ballot, puts it in the inner envelope, then puts that, has the outer envelope, sends that back to Elections Canada headquarters in Ottawa. You spoke of some verification measures. Can you just elaborate on what those exactly are?
Correct. These are the measures that are in fact prescribed in legislation. So we have to verify that there is a signature on the outer envelope. There's the name of the elector that is there. We do a barcode scan to make sure that the return envelope matches the kit that was issued. So, and that's, of course, is of critical importance. It ensures that a kit that may have been issued in a previous election will never be able to be used in a subsequent election if it was not used in that election, because the barcode ensures that there's a proper match.
Okay. Thank you so much. We will move on to Madame Kaibaga for 6 minutes, please.
6 minutes. Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Chair, Minister, it's a pleasure to see you here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You have a big job. Forgive my brevity, but I have a few questions here, so I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I'm curious about the process for the Major Projects Office. Who makes the final decision about whether a project is referred to the MPO? Is that a decision that you make personally? Is that one that Cabinet makes? Is that one that the Prime Minister makes? Who holds that decision right?
So projects come forward from either industrial proponents who choose to bring them directly to the MPO or through the department, the relevant department. They can be brought forward by a province or territorial government, and oftentimes the province and territorial governments are very close to what's going on in their particular jurisdiction. They're often working with these proponents, and they often contact us and ask for us to meet with them. They also can come forward from Indigenous groups. So
I sort of cut you off, as I mentioned before, about brevity, but my question isn't how they come forward. My question is when they are referred, who makes the final decision about how to refer that project, or how does it get on that list? Is that a decision that you hold by yourself, or is that a decision that Cabinet makes, or is it a decision the Prime Minister makes?
So projects get screened by the Major Projects Office. Yes. Once the Major Projects Office thinks they may be of help, those projects are presented to the Build Canada Committee. The Build Canada Committee reviews those projects and then presents ones that get through to Minister LeBlanc as the minister responsible for the Privy Council. Minister LeBlanc presents them to Cabinet and then ultimately to the Prime Minister.
Okay, and so the Prime Minister is involved obviously throughout this process. But the final decision is a Cabinet. It sounds like it's a Cabinet decision. Is that correct?
It is a Cabinet decision, yes.
Okay. And I assume the Prime Minister's office would be consulted throughout the process before it appears in Cabinet. Are you aware of any, do you ever have one-on-one conversations with the Prime Minister about these projects, or are there always officials present?
There's always officials present.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask a question about the tanker ban? It came up in question period today. It seems that you're trying to put some distance between yourself and previous policy decisions of a previous government. Can you state clearly that the current government would either exempt or repeal the tanker ban if oil can make it to the West Coast?
What I can say is that we will work with we will work with proponents who have proposals. We have been clear with the proponents, if they have the support of First Nations and they have support of the jurisdictions, we will work with them to clear whatever barriers there are.
So that would include clearing the barrier of the tanker ban?
I can't answer because I don't have a particular project you're talking about, so I have no idea whether...
So do you think that there's no particular proponent because it's unclear whether the government would repeal the tanker ban in order to move that product overseas?
So I don't deal in hypotheticals. If you're referring to the Alberta government has said they will work on a proposal. They will bring it in the spring of next year. And when they bring that, they have to do the work just like any other proponent. And if and when that they have done the work and they've got the support of First Nations and they have the support of the jurisdiction, we will work with them to see how we can make things happen.
Including getting rid of the tanker ban?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals.
Okay. But do you think that there's a reason that there is no proponent loudly coming forward now is because the government is being unclear about, because, you have cabinet colleagues who clearly are wedded to the decisions of a previous government. So I guess, you're not willing to clearly state that you'll remove that barrier?
So what I'm willing to say is that we have been talking with that proponent, the government, the potential proponent, that government of Alberta. We have been working on, as has been widely reported, a memorandum of understanding. That is a work in process right now. I think we are getting close to a place, and when that gets done, we'll have some more clarity.
Okay, great. Thank you.
30 seconds, yeah.
In my remaining time, I can't help but, you've worked on both sides of the border. You have a fairly lengthy and admirable experience in America and in Canada on both sides of the business community. We're 9 months from when President Trump brought in unjustified tariffs. How long do you think the Canadian economy can survive in the current state without a deal?
So, look, we are in a trade war. It's a trade war we did not ask for. It is a trade war we have to win. President Trump has decided, for whatever reason, to change the way the entire world trades with the United States. These are difficult negotiations. What I can tell you is today, we have the best deal of any country in the world. That is in some ways cold comfort, but I want to be clear. We have the best deal of any country. No other country in the world has 85% of their trade which crosses the border tariff-free today. Now, the Americans are systematically attacking us in a series of sectors where we are working hard to mitigate that while we continue to negotiate. What we've been clear is we will not do a bad deal. When you look at the deals that other countries have done, they are much less attractive than the deal we have today.
Thank you. And we're going to start with Mr. Tucker for 5 minutes. Mr. Tucker.
You promised a Canada Strong, elbows up platform. Remember that? Yet before the dust had even settled on the election, a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar contract was awarded to U.S. companies, allowing Americans to carry out a corporate raid on our strategic nuclear research assets at C&L. Did you approve this transaction?
That characterization of the contract is completely inaccurate.
Minister, we'll try something else. If it's not that, but will you undertake to provide the committee with the dates of every time you were briefed about this decision and any memos you received explaining it?
So the way this works is there is an RFP that gets issued.
I understand on the contract. We'll get back to that. But will you provide this committee with those documents? Yes or no?
Those documents are done by an independent agency It is
believe
not
that
the
this is
purview of this committee.
But you approved this. You approved this transaction.
Let me reiterate.
That's okay. Let's move on to
let me
different
finish.
question
You keep, and let me finish and answer the question. All of the management of the entity that is managing these activities are based in Canada.
But
95% of the every employee is in Canada.
But owned by America.
95%. So are you against any American company operating in Canada? I don't think that's consistent with
I
the
think
conservative.
they're consistent with the Elbows Up campaign you just ran.
Elbows Up means lots of things. Elbows Up means
Do you think this was in national interest then?
You're not letting me finish. Can I please finish?
No, I only have a limited amount of time.
Well,
Is
then
this
let
in
me
the
finish
national interest,
answering
though?
the question, please. Elbows Up means negotiating with all of the countries in the world, doubling our exports, creating alternatives to Americans. That's what we're doing.
Well, with that, sir, Canada's a world leader in the production of life-saving medical isotopes. There are concerns that the American companies engaging in a corporate raid at CNL could lead to a monopoly. This has already triggered multiple ongoing Competition Bureau investigations. Are you concerned about the Americans having a monopoly on these life-saving isotopes?
So again, your characterization
Competition
is a raid is completely inaccurate. I personally have visited Darlington, where the isotopes are done, which is owned by a Canadian company, Ontario Power Generation, and I have visited Bruce Power, where those isotopes are also produced, owned by two Canadian entities, OMERS, Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System, and TC Energy. They are Canadian companies.
Then why is the Competition Bureau concerned that it's a monopoly that we're giving over to the Americans?
The competition, the Competition Bureau is an independent entity. It's actually not in my department. It's in ISED. So,
but they have concerns, though.
No, they're reviewing a transaction like they normally review. Look, I was in the investment banking world for my entire life. It is normal for transactions to be reviewed. Because a transaction is being reviewed, it in no way implies there's anything wrong. It's a normal process.
Okay. And then, so according to the Conflict of Interest Commission, or Interest and Ethics Commissioner, the latest report has Prime Minister Carney owning shares in BWXT, which is an American company leading the takeover at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. It's also being investigated by the Competition Bureau, like I mentioned earlier. How can Canadians trust that it is not about lining an individual's pockets versus at the expense of Canadians?
You are, again, inferring something that just is simply not true. Our Prime Minister will, and always will comply with all of the ethics guidelines. To my knowledge, there is no inconsistency in what he has done. And the assertion or the innuendo that he's somehow doing something wrong is not consistent with what the Ethics Commissioner has said.
I have one last question. Regarding large conventional nuclear and CANDU and the AP1000 designs, which, in your view, is more Canadian?
That's a hypothetical.
They exist.
If what you're asking is, do we support the proponents reviewing both technologies and the proponents making a choice? Yes, we do.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you very much. The IEA has just recanted its original claim that oil demand has peaked worldwide. Do you agree with that is now that oil demand has not peaked?
So I'm sorry to do this again, but I just fundamentally disagree with your premise. The IEA does not make predictions. The IEA provides scenarios.
But they recanted that it's not peak oil.
No, they have added scenarios. I've read the report. I've actually looked at it. They have scenarios that look at a net zero, and they have other scenarios. They have added additional scenarios.
We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
Just back to the Competition Bureau, is currently investigating the award of the management of CNL to American companies. What recourse is there if the Competition Bureau rules against them?
As someone who spent my life doing M&A, what I believe happens is if the Competition Bureau rules, they have what are called remedies. They offer remedies, and it's up to the parties to figure out whether they accept those remedies or not. It may involve the divestment of portions of the business. It may involve other remedies. Then the parties to that transaction will have to decide whether they accept those remedies. If they don't accept those remedies, I am not the agency. The agency runs that.
Then I got one quick follow-up question.
So, gang, we're going to cross over to question period now. We've got that on the go. I believe we have a Conservative on the floor, so we'll jump right into this. Let's kick this off. Let's go.
Food, fertilizer,
like, share,
fuel,
subscribe.
transportation, and farm equipment. The result? Higher bills at the checkout and rising anxiety at the kitchen table. The most expensive government in Canadian history has delivered the most expensive groceries in Canadian histories. Canadians are demanding a government that makes life more affordable, and only Conservatives will deliver.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, today on International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, our government is clear. Violence against women must end. Too many women still live in fear. Too many children grow up in homes marked by abuse, and this is unacceptable. In Port Moody and Coquitlam, I thank Tri-City Transitions, the Soar Optimist warm place for women, and Share Family and Community Services. They are lifelines. They offer shelter, they offer support, and they offer hope. To the women who bravely step forward and to those who walk beside them, we honor your courage. Our government is investing $224 million over 5 years to prevent gender-based violence and expand survivor supports. We will not stop until every woman can live free from violence.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, hardworking Canadians are struggling, lining up at food banks and paying eye-wateringly high Liberal taxes. You know who isn't struggling, Mr. Speaker? The Prime Minister, his corporate elite buddies, and Brookfield. As Canada's #1 tax dodger, Brookfield avoided paying $6.5 billion in taxes. That's enough to buy a week's worth of groceries for every single Canadian, Mr. Speaker. In case Brookfield's tax dodging wasn't enough, now this Prime Minister is handing them Canadian taxpayers' hard-earned money. We learned that the European Space Agency received a $500 million contract. What was hidden was that 50% of the Harwell campus, where the European Space Agency is located, is owned by, you guessed it, Brookfield. Mr. Speaker, this out-of-touch Prime Minister's record is to ship jobs out of the country and chase away investment. Canadians deserve a Prime Minister who puts Canada and Canadians first, not his corporate buddies.
The Honourable Member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, as Chair of the Canada-Taiwan Friendship Group, I'm honoured today to rise and welcome to the Hill the President of the Taiwanese Chambers of Commerce of North America. Delegates have come from across the continent in the spirit of new opportunities and stronger trade. This week I have the privilege of hosting 2 important events, a parliamentary discussion on Canada-Taiwan relations and the vibrant celebration of Taiwan Night 2025 celebrating the strong and growing ties between Canada and Taiwan rooted in shared democracy, values, mutual respect, and a commitment to economic cooperation. Like Canada, Taiwan is a dynamic and innovative partner. By expanding trade, investment, and cultural exchange, we strengthen supply chains, foster prosperity, and build bridges that transcend borders and oceans. I thank our guests for this dedication and look forward to seeing everyone tonight at Taiwan 2025.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan, St. Paul.
Prime Minister,
Speaker positioned himself as the so-called man with a plan to save Canada from Mr. Trump. He promised he would deliver a trade deal by July 21st, but he failed to deliver on that promise. And now, as a result, Canada is losing thousands of manufacturing jobs. Breaking his promise has real consequences. Businesses are packing up and leaving Canada for greener pastures in the U.S., where there's tariff relief, lower taxes, and less regulation. And now the Prime Minister is treating this issue as it's irrelevant. Who cares, he said, about the negotiations breaking down, and then he doesn't, quote, have a burning issue to speak with the President about right now, end quote. It is outrageous, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister of this country would even say that thousands of jobs in steel, autos, forestry, and countless other industries are bleeding, and Canada is on the precipice of losing tens of thousands of good-paying Canadian jobs. So who cares, Mr. Speaker? Well, Conservatives care, and we are the only ones that will deliver a Canada to make it the best place to build, to hire Canadian workers. Only Conservatives will deliver on that promise.
The honourable member for Spadina Harbourfront.
Mr. Speaker, last month, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's Business Data Lab, commissioned by Business Arts in partnership with the Canada Council for the Arts, released a report confirming that the arts are far more than cultural expression. They're a key economic driver. In 2024, the sector generated $65 billion in GDP, nearly $130 billion in total economic impact, and over $7 billion in tax revenue that helps support essential public services. We often talk about physical infrastructure, but cultural infrastructure, like the arts, is what connects us as a country. This is where identity takes shape and where Canadians are themselves reflected. Our government recognizes this, which is why Budget 2025 makes important investments in arts and culture and helping Canadian creators share their stories at home and around the world. This evening, I invite all members to attend the Canada Live Performance Arts Industry's reception with industry leaders, artists, and a very special performance by iconic Canadian musician Alan Doyle. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Hey, let's get her going. En anglais, s'il vous plaît. No.
Mr. Speaker, in his 28 trips, this Prime Minister hasn't been able to reduce a single foreign tariff on Canada. But he has managed to find gains for Brookfield. A few days after he met with President Trump, the President signed an agreement to buy $80 billion worth of nuclear products from Brookfield. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is spending millions of dollars for a special project in Europe on the Brookfield campus. Why is it that every time the Prime Minister goes abroad, Canadians get poorer, but Brookfield, his business, gets richer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président, comme d'habitude.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, the leader of the opposition should check his numbers. The government of Indonesia has reduced tariffs on Canadian goods on 95% of our goods and services. Meanwhile, the government of the UAE will invest $70 billion in our economy.
No, not the Right Honourable. The Leader of the Opposition. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Since the Prime Minister was elected promising, quote, to negotiate a win with the U.S., American tariffs on autos, aluminum, and steel have doubled, and on Canadian lumber, they've tripled. Not a single American tariff has been reduced since he promised he would reduce them. And now he says, who cares? Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I care about the 3,000 auto workers that I met on the picket line in Brampton who are out of a job. I care about the 8 mills that have closed because the Prime Minister failed to deliver a deal. The workers on those lines, they care. Canadians care. Why doesn't the Prime Minister care?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since I became Prime Minister, Canada has secured the lowest tariffs of any country in the world. On 85% of our goods, the tariffs are zero. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there are sectors, the auto sector, the steel sector, the lumber sector, the aluminum sector, that are under pressure. We care. We're acting in those sectors. There will be announcements this week to further support.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Before the election, he promised elbows up. After, it was who cares? Before the election, he said the tariffs were an existential crisis. Now he says they're not a burning issue. Before the election, he promised to negotiate a win. After, he backed down to American tariffs, and those tariffs have now doubled on Canadian aluminum, autos, and steel, and tripled on Canadian lumber. Before the election, he promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. After, he delivered the fastest shrinking economy. Why is the Prime Minister before the election so much different than the one after?
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of the election, when I had the great honor from my constituents of being elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some others in the chamber today, I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did make a mistake. He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, Conservatives care. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them. This Prime Minister has now had 8 months, and those tariffs have now more than tripled. Prime Minister asks, who cares? I can tell you, on behalf of all the MPs on this side, we care about the jobs that are being lost in Lumbertown. Why doesn't he?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government cares about creating jobs in this country. That's why we proposed a budget before this House that catalyzes $1 trillion of investment over 5 years. The member opposite and his colleagues, those who could make it into the room, voted against that budget, voted against Canadian workers, voted against Canada's future. We believe in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are building it strong.
Screw you, Mark Carney!
Well, Chinese, American, Indian, and other tariffs have only gone up since the Prime Minister began his 28-trip journey around the world. He hasn't had a single solitary win. In fact, the only wins he's had are for Brookfield. Just days after he met with the President, Trump signed on to $80 billion of nuclear purchases from Brookfield. And then he gave $500 million of our tax money to the European Space Agency located on Brookfield's campus. Why is it that whenever he spends his time and our money, Canadians end up poor and he and Brookfield end up richer?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, not for the first time, the Leader of the Opposition needs to check his numbers. The government of Indonesia is reducing tariffs on 95% of Canadian goods. Canada has the best deal with the United States. 85% of our goods are tariff-free. The United Arab Emirates is just confirmed that they want to invest $70 billion in this country. They believe in Canada's future. Why don't the members of
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Right, and he arrived just a few days after Brookfield's CEO, lining up with the same interests that are not Canadian interests, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of Canadian interests, this Prime Minister opposed the pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, just like his Liberal predecessor blocked that same pipeline. On Thursday, he'll make one of his grand announcements, waving around a meaningless so-called memorandum of understanding. If it's anything other than a public relations ploy, why won't he say, on what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Is he going to open up with them?
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the question reveals everything. The memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions, because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support. All stakeholders have to back. That's one Canada.
L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals always cheat. We're just going to wait for things to calm down so that we can hear the honourable member for Saint-Jean. Please go ahead. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals always cheat. We found that out in 1995, and we see it now. The Minister of Immigration at the time confirmed that Jean Chrétien asked him to speed up giving citizenship to as many people as possible so they could vote in the referendum, and the Liberals have admitted that they leveraged immigration during that vote. Last month, Jean Chrétien also admitted that if Quebecers had voted yes, he would have used a whole bunch of low tricks to avoid having to recognize the new reality. Liberals always cheat, and if Quebec holds a new referendum, will they cheat again? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I would say that with 45 Quebec Liberal members here, it's pretty clear that we respect the vote of Quebecers. The Bloc Québécois is always criticizing Quebec members, and meanwhile, we are building this great country. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, the Liberals cheated during the referendum, whereas the yes camp was democratic. The proof of that is how Quebecers nobly accepted the results of the referendum, but they accepted it because they felt that it was a democratic process, but actually that democratic process had been undermined by the Liberals. They rigged the results, and Jean Chrétien was even prepared to cheat if the yes camp had won. With a third referendum on the horizon, will the Federalists finally debate democratically instead of using cheating and scary stories? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois is turned toward the past, but this government is turned toward the future. With confidence, boldness, and ambition for Quebec and Canada.
L'honorable député du Lac-Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people have to wait for years to be granted citizenship, while Ottawa twiddles its thumbs. But now we know what the Liberals are up to. We know that if there were just a referendum in Quebec, Ottawa would suddenly take action. Imagine the conversation. Oh, you want us to process your file more quickly? Okay, great. But you will vote against the referendum to thank the good old Canadian government. How is it that Canada's immigration system is always broken except when there's an opportunity to harm Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, the Bloc Québécois is trying to scare us. Canada attracts the best people in the world. And all Canadians and Quebecers want to build this great country with our government.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister apparently hasn't read our Constitution, which indicates that the federal government alone has jurisdiction over pipelines that cross borders. Let me quote 9210. Federal jurisdiction applies to works and undertakings that connect one province to another or extend beyond provincial limits. In other words, it is exclusively the federal government's decision on whether to approve a pipeline. It was this federal government that blocked the last pipeline. So can he confirm, once and for all, is he deciding unilaterally to give veto to NDP BC Premier to block a project that Canada needs?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, last week we talked about that big, long, giant pipeline of hot air that animated the country for 10 years during the government of which that member was a member. Not a single milliliter of oil reached Tidewater under the Harper era. In a Liberal government, oil exports have increased. Oil exports to Tidewater, thanks to the purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, have increased. Canada is a conventional and a renewable energy superpower, and that will continue.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it really is embarrassing that a Prime Minister who claimed that he was the man with the plan cannot even stand up and debate me about pipelines on the floor of the House of Commons. He's afraid. He's afraid to have to do it. The previous Conservative government approved a pipeline to Tidewaters, the Northern Gateway Pipeline, which the Liberals then defeated and destroyed, giving massive power to the Americans to monopolize our oil. Will the Prime Minister, who promised to act with unimaginable speed 8 months ago, finally stand up for Canadian workers and confirm that he will approve a pipe to the top?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our government fully understands the ultimate jurisdiction for interprovincial pipelines rests with the federal government. At the same time, our government has been clear that a proponent for a major project, for it to be designated, we expect it to work with the impacted jurisdictions and with First Nations. Mr. Speaker, they don't understand that. The Premier of Alberta understands that. They want to work with us.
Great job, Jeff. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it really is pathetic that the Prime Minister cannot stand in his place and defend his position. He's afraid to defend the fact that on Thursday he will not sign on to a new pipeline. He will sign on to a public relations stunt while planning to hide behind the Premier of BC and abdicating his unique constitutional responsibilities. If he wanted a pipeline, if he no longer believed in the keep it in the ground extremist ideology that he supported for 10 years, then he would stand up today and say that he will approve a pipe to the Pacific. Will he?
The Honourable Minister of Excuse me, we haven't given the green light yet to answer the question. I'm waiting for it to get a little quieter. Yeah, like the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to understand how to get a pipeline built. The Premier of Alberta does. It's working with this government to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
Of the Opposition.
Speaker, the question was for the Prime Minister. He's here in Ottawa today.
Go get him.
He has the ability to stand up and state his position. He claimed that he was going to act with unimaginable speed. Here we are 8 months later, and he refuses to state whether he even supports a new oil pipeline or whether he'd like to continue to pump that oil at discounts to the United States of America while Canadians pay the price. What does it take to get a pipeline approved by this Prime Minister? Does it have to be a Brookfield pipeline?
Government House Leader.
Speaker, natural resources projects, interprovincial resource projects, there are indeed a great deal of those. The federal government has a unique role and must ensure that our obligations to First Nations, our obligations to other provinces, to communities, to consulting are present and those conditions are met, and then we are able to proceed. The Leader of the Opposition, now that he's standing right there, may want to stand up and say what part of that process would he not respect, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I I don't respect the idea of standing in the way of Canadian energy workers and giving our oil to the Americans at a discount. What we would do is get the government out of the way and get the project built. The Prime Minister has the unique constitutional opportunity to do that. Section 9210 of the BNA Act makes it exclusively a federal decision. This Prime Minister is hiding under his desk rather than answering the question. 8 months after promising that he would take unprecedented action with unimaginable speed, he's done nothing. Why doesn't he get out of the way?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Nonsense. We have dozens of major projects in play and under study, and we are building the country at unimaginable speed. We are creating opportunities for energy workers, for young people, for housing, for steel, lumber, aluminum, and autos in this country. That is what we are doing. What is shocking is that the Leader of the Opposition stands in his place and somehow pretends in his whole fake way that he's going to override and steamroll the rights of Canadians that have a right to have a say in these projects. We're going to give them a say. He won't.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
While the Prime Minister hides under his desk, he puts up his House Leader to rant and rave and pump his fists in the air. This Prime Minister said that we faced an existential crisis requiring that we act with unimaginable speed. And here we are 8 months later, and he doesn't even have the courage to tell Canadians whether he supports a pipeline that would allow us to go around the American monopoly of our energy and get our product to the world. So will he finally stand up for workers, stand up in this House, and answer the question, a pipeline or a pipe dream?
The Prime Minister was disloyal to Canada. Secondly, the member for Northern Rockies repeated MAGA claims that immigrants.
He's the one that is blocking a pipeline that would allow Canada to become energy independent, to reach markets outside of Canada, while he and his company invest in pipelines in the Middle East and in Latin America. He's the one that forces Canadians to spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined, while he stashes his cash in a Bermuda tax haven above a bicycle shop. So if he wants to say that he's Canada first, why doesn't he stand up in this House and start acting like it?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
The Building Trades Union, the Canadian Labour Congress.
He's too busy checking his shares. They've gone up.
Does the Honourable Member have a question?
Yeah,
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, the Building Trades Union, the Canadian Labour Congress, the Leona Union, Mr. Speaker. These are all unions that have praised Budget 2025. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because they make historic investments in the major infrastructure projects that are going to create great jobs all across this country. Whether it's supporting Canadians through things like the Canada Child Benefit, indexing it to inflation, whether it's creating jobs and helping people get the skills to take them. Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives vote against Canadians every single time. Canadians know better.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, it's official. Canada is giving up on fighting climate change. The Prime Minister will announce it Thursday with a whole new dirty pipeline to the West Coast. Another one after Trans Mountain, which cost people $34 billion. And that's not even counting climate adaptation costs. A new pipeline, which thanks to C5 and C15, I will have to interrupt the member.
Un instant.
Although the member is a bit far away from me, I have a speaker here, and yet even with the speaker, I couldn't hear him. I would like to ask the member for Repentigny to start over from the beginning. Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister doesn't want to hear this question, but it's official. Canada has given up on the fight against climate change. We'll see that Thursday when a new dirty pipeline will be announced, another one. We already have Trans Mountain, which costs Canadian citizens $34 billion, and that's not counting climate adaptation costs. This is a dark day, dark, just like the dirty oil that the Liberals are wallowing in. This government clearly has no green convictions left. The Honourable Minister for Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before, our government is committed to fighting climate change every day. If my colleague wants to talk about major projects, well, I would like to talk about the Iqaluit hydroelectric project, which will enable northern communities to have clean energy. That's important both for people's health and for the environment. Or what about high-speed rail, which is good for our communities? We are doing the work and we are fighting climate change every day. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, on May 14th, the Minister of Heritage stated that this is not the right time for new pipelines. But clearly for his party, it's always a good time. Because now, in addition to Trans Mountain, we have a second dirty pipeline to the West Coast. We remember the years of Stephen Harper as being bad years for the environment. But Stephen Harper never approved a single pipeline, whereas these Liberals will have approved 2 new pipelines. And that includes the Minister of Heritage. How is he still part of that party? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it is quite remarkable to hear members of the Bloc Québécois today when we have created a generational budget which invests in infrastructure, in national corridors, which will enable us to create clean energy projects throughout the country, Mr. Speaker. If I were in the Bloc Québécois, I would be standing up to applaud Budget 2025. But instead, they hid away on the day of the budget. They will have to explain to Quebecers why they are voting against green projects throughout the country. On this side of the House, we will always be there to build Canada strong. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, just like 30 years ago, the Liberals want to hand out citizenship to just about anyone. In Bill C-12, the Liberals are giving themselves the authority to change temporary resident visa to create permanent visas. They've stated that they could cancel or vary permanent or temporary resident visas, work and study permits, electronic travel authorizations, and other documents. Liberals want to speed up the process to access citizenship. Are they doing that in the interest of Canada or of the Liberal Party? The Honourable Minister of Citizenship, Refugees and Immigration. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This government is focusing on the future. We will reduce temporary residences. We will prioritize economic immigration, and we will also grow Francophone communities. I hope that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives will support us in that. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the Minister will read her own bill so that she understands what she's doing. Mr. Speaker, at the G20 summit recently, when this Prime Minister was asked whether he would be speaking to the American president, he said, "Who cares?" which in French is, "Who cares?" And now we understand that that's because, well, this morning, Brookfield's chief operating officer stated at a committee that 95% of Brookfield's businesses that Brookfield holds are not going to be under the ethics review, which means that the Prime Minister will personally benefit from at least 1,900 businesses. And now we know why he doesn't care about these 3,800 employees in the aluminum sector. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives keep repeating these empty, completely hollow allegations without a shred of truth to them. It's shocking to hear from my veteran colleague. As he knows perfectly well, we have one of the strictest ethics codes in the entire world, which the Prime Minister is following to the letter.
The Honourable Member for for York-Durham.
The Prime Minister was elected on a promise to negotiate a win, a good deal with the United States. But when asked about it on the weekend, he said, who cares? It's just a detail, and that he would speak with the President when it matters. From negotiate a win to who cares in a matter of months. Who cares about our most important trading relationship? Canadians care. Ontario's auto industry is more than just a detail. It matters to the thousands of workers in York and Durham regions, and it matters now. Well, the Prime Minister explained to Ontario's auto workers why he said, who cares?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, as we said yesterday, just because our colleague keeps repeating the same inaccurate phrase doesn't make it real. The Prime Minister has said that our government will always stand up for workers in the auto sector, in the steel sector, in the aluminum sector, in the forestry sector. Unlike the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, our government isn't going to sign just any old deal. We're going to sign a deal that's in the interest of Canadian workers and the Canadian economy, and we're going to continue to support those sectors as we go through these difficult times.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Kenora-Kiiwetinoong.
The Prime Minister proclaimed himself the so-called master negotiator when it came to dealing with the Americans, Mr. Speaker. He promised to negotiate a win by July 21st. Now, months after failing to do so, he says, who cares? Well, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you who cares. Conservatives care, and the workers, the sawmill workers in Ear Falls, hundreds of which who have lost their jobs, they care, Mr. Speaker. So will the Prime Minister look at those workers and tell them who cares?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we care about the forestry industry. That's why we've announced $1.2 billion in support for the industry. That's why we're meeting almost every day with the industries, as recently as last night, Mr. Speaker. And we have good news for the opposition. There will be new supports coming this week for the forestry product sector.
The Honourable Member for Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, during the election campaign, this Prime Minister said he would be elbows up when dealing with the existential crisis of Trump's tariffs. Now, months after failing to negotiate a win, he's saying, who cares? Well, I'll tell you who cares. Conservatives care, and so do the 1,200 steel workers at Interpro Pipe and Steel in Regina, whose jobs are under threat because of this trade war. How can the Prime Minister look the 1,200 steel workers at Interpro Pipe and Steel in the eyes and tell them who cares?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, our colleagues keep repeating phrases that they know are not accurate. What is accurate, Mr. Speaker, is our government has always supported the hardworking women and men who work in our steel sector in every corner of the country. We've put in place unprecedented support measures. We're prepared to continue to do more. The Prime Minister met with industry leaders in this sector last week. Mr. Speaker, we'll always stand up for the hardworking women and men in our steel sector and other sectors of the Canadian economy.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Milton East, Halton Hills South.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to see real results, new jobs, new opportunities, and growth that supports families and businesses in communities like mine in Milton and Georgetown. This past week, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs were in the UAE and South Africa, making deals, securing those opportunities, and showcasing the best of what Canada has to offer. Could the Minister of Foreign Affairs update the House on how Canada is leveraging our strengths to deliver real benefits to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. Everywhere I go, people say they want more Canada. And last week, the Prime Minister confirmed the largest foreign investment commitment in Canadian history at $70 billion. In addition, we have launched trade negotiations with India for a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, Mr. Speaker. We are building the strongest economy in the G7 by unlocking generational investments. Vive la Canada!
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
3 years ago, the Finance Minister promised Canadians he would stabilize food prices by Thanksgiving. Well, 3 pumpkin pies have come and gone, and food inflation is 50% higher than target. What could possibly have gone wrong when the finance minister promised tools like the grocery?
Oh, come on.
To lower food prices. So will the Minister of Finance please stand and explain to Canadians why he promised the COVID would lower food prices when he knew?
All right, gang, I'm not sure what's going on. There's an internet connection issue, it looks like. It's coming from them because, like, internet's working behind me. What is up? Sorry, gang. What are we going to do? We're going to do this. Oh, come on.
Hand in the pockets
CPAC.
of Canadians. He drives up the price of everything. And we are
Sorry,
seeing,
gang.
with their own imaginary taxes, like the fuel tax and an increase to the industrial carbon tax, are making everything more expensive, driving up the cost to grow the food, move the food, and buy the food. Right. This is at a time when food inflation in Canada is 40% higher than it is in the United States. Yep. Why is the Prime Minister so intent to force Canadians to food banks by increasing his taxes on food and fuel?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, if that leader, that member, and that party actually cared about making life more affordable for Canadians, they wouldn't have voted against automatic federal benefits, getting 5.5 million Canadians benefits that otherwise would be left unclaimed. Benefits like the Canada Child Benefit, the Disability Tax Credit, the Canada Workers Benefit. The only thing that leader cares about is keeping his job, his dismal poll numbers, and quashing a caucus revolt. We care about Canadians, and we will deliver for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Well, it's clear that families across the country are struggling to afford even the most basic necessities. Under this Liberal government, many Canadians have been stripped of the basic dignity of being able to provide for themselves. Since 2017, for example, the price of baby formula has gone up by 84%, leaving parents so desperate that it's actually now the #1 item taken from grocery store shelves. Yesterday, the Secretary of State for Children and Youth said or suggested that hungry infants should in fact enroll in the Liberal school food program. Wow. So I'm just...
Oh, Lord. Come on, CPAC.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Well, it's clear that families across the country are struggling to afford even the most basic necessities. Under this Liberal government, many Canadians have been stripped of the basic dignity of being able to provide for themselves. Since 2017, for example, the price of baby formula has gone up by 84%, leaving parents so desperate that it's actually now the #1 item taken from grocery store shelves. Yesterday, the Secretary of State for Children and Youth said or suggested that hungry infants should in fact enroll in the Liberal school food program. Wow. So I'm just curious, do Liberals understand that babies don't go to school?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Mr. Speaker, we all want the best solution to drive down the price of food, and that's why we're working on real facts. My colleague mentioned the Agriculture Committee. Well, let me quote you the VP of Costco and other grocers, but he said, and I quote, "What drives the price of food? The first item is the commodity itself. With a bad crop, the price goes up. With a good crop, the price goes down. It has nothing to do with any policy, Mr. Speaker. We want solution. In order to drive down the price of food, we have to support our farmer with climate resilience, Mr. Speaker."
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
So I guess the answer is yes, then. Liberals believe that babies should just go and enroll in a school food program that they offer. It's ludicrous that Liberals are referring hungry babies to a school food program. It's outrageous that in a country like Canada, parents are having to make the decision between paying their bills and being able to afford the basic necessities of life for a baby. This is literally life and death, and these Liberals stand over there and shrug their shoulders. When will the Prime Minister stop his inflationary spending and make life affordable for Canadians again?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we understand that any parent struggling to feed their child is one parent too many. My colleague opposite knows that Canada has historically relied on imports of baby formula, which means Canadians have been impacted by external pressures. As a country, we do have to move from reliance to resilience, and I would also point out that the Canada Child Benefit, which members opposite continue to vote against in budget after budget, puts up to $8,000 tax-free in the pockets of parents. This will help with the cost of baby formula. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Nopinière. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the costliest in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes directly out of Canadians' pockets. The government allowed the National Research Council of Canada to spend over $60,000 of public money on patio furniture at a time when people are struggling to put food on the table. Mr. Speaker, everyone likes to soak up some sun, but the government should not be doing so at the expense of taxpayers. When will this Liberal government stop throwing money out the window and onto patios?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Nous attendons de toutes les organisations gouvernementales.
We expect that all government organizations follow the required procurement process. Our government evaluates all organizations and assesses possible savings. Meanwhile, I know that the Research Council does a lot of important work for Canada and its growth. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lopinière. Mr. Speaker, food prices have risen nearly 40% faster in Canada than in the United States, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who the Liberals want to dismiss in the near future. Hidden taxes will drive up gas prices by up to 17 cents a litre. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals could have brought down food costs for Canadian households. Why is the Prime Minister sticking with a hidden tax of 17 cents a litre on fuel, which makes food even more expensive? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. Mr. Speaker, we are looking for solutions to bring down food prices. But you know, Mr. Speaker, real solutions are based on real facts. Last week at the agriculture community, we heard from the Costco CEO, and he told us that what drives up food prices is the impact of climate variations on harvests. When it's a good year or a good harvest, food prices will go down, but if it's a bad year, prices will go up.
For Newmarket, Aurora.
This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. A father in Newmarket who is an engineer said to me, we cannot cover the living costs. I can only pay for the mortgage, utilities and taxes. Food, transportation and insurance, well, that's out of pocket. And while Canadians struggle, the Liberals keep up punishing fuel tax that adds up to 17 cents more per litre at the pumps, hiking the cost of parents driving to work, of the farmers and the truckers who bring the food to our shelves. So why is this Prime Minister clinging to this fuel tax and doubling down on reckless inflationary spending?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Instead of the members opposite focusing on fake taxes, rather they should support things that actually put a few bucks extra in the pockets of hardworking Canadians. You know, as a former single mother and a person who lived paycheck to paycheck for most of my life, I can tell you that what helps parents, what helps families, is having money in our pockets. And so when we index things like the Canada Child Benefit to inflation, that puts money in the pockets of Canadians. They can then use it to buy the things they need. It's pretty simple, Mr. Speaker, but it's really hard for these Conservatives to understand.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Fake, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals say that the cost pressures on Canadians are fake. Here's another note from someone else in Newmarket. As the cost of living increases and our salaries don't, we are being driven into poverty. 4 out of 5 Canadians list food as their #1 worry when paying their bills. Food. And Statistics Canada confirms that beef is up 17%, baby formula 6%, coffee up 34%. That is not fake. They should knock on some doors and get a reality check from the people they claim to represent. The Liberals dismiss the struggles of Canadians, but I ask, why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it really seems to me like the member opposite
missed her chance to vote for a tax cut that would have benefited 22 million Canadians, including members in her riding. Now, just this morning, she spoke about engineers. Mr. Speaker, just this morning, I met with the International Union of Operating Engineers. There are 18,000 here in Ontario. You know what we talked about? We talked about the importance of early learning and childcare, because they need that not only to recruit and train new engineers, but to benefit the families who depend on it for affordable childcare so they can go to work.
Hear, hear. Honourable member for Simcoe North.
It has been reported that the government is considering lifting the tanker ban to support an east-west oil pipeline. The problem is some Liberal MPs and even cabinet ministers don't support this proposal. So, Mr. Speaker, who speaks for the government? Will the minister finally clear it up today that the government is going to do what Conservatives have called for all along, scrap the emissions cap and lift the tanker ban so Canadian resources can get to market?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to do what we need to do, which is build Canada strong. The Prime Minister has been clear. Major projects will only proceed with rigorous environmental assessments and clear contributions to Canada's climate change objectives.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is Economic Violence Awareness Day. The day is a Canadian initiative that is now observed around the world. Economic violence, such as restricting access to money, sabotaging employment, or forcing someone into debt, is a common form of gender-based violence. Economic violence robs people of their autonomy and limits their ability to lead a stable and fulfilling life. I am proud to have voted in favour of a budget with measures to combat economic violence. Could the Minister of Finance remind those who voted against the budget of what exactly they opposed? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for her excellent question and for her leadership on this file. Preventing economic violence means guaranteeing access to information and financial resources. Good news, and the Conservatives should be happy about this. In Budget 2025, we announced our intention to develop a voluntary code of conduct for the prevention of economic violence. In order to do so, we will collaborate with the Canadian financial sector, because the sector plays a role in early detection of violence. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, some members voted against the budget in this place, but we should all support the fight against economic violence.
Canadians need to know that every decision the Prime Minister makes is in the national interest and not in his own financial interest. Yesterday at committee, Brookfield confirmed that every time Brookfield makes money, this Prime Minister makes money, and that 1,900 companies that Brookfield owns are not covered by this Prime Minister's ethics screen. Wow. Every time he goes down to the White House, he doesn't come back with a deal for Canadians, but the last time he went, he did get a $80 billion deal for Brookfield. So will the Prime Minister just give Canadians the confidence they deserve and sell his financial interest in Brookfield?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition should stop the conspiracy theories. They should get out more, stop saying no, and find out who's saying yes to Canada. They don't even have to go far. Just this morning, I was in Canada where Nokia said yes to Canada and the Ottawa-Gatineau area, and they broke ground in a $340 million innovation center. They employed 2,600 Canadians. They will employ 340 more. They should do what Nokia does. Build in Canada, buy in Canada, believe in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands.
It must be concerning for the minister that the clerk of the Privy Council believed in the same conspiracy so much that he sold his shares in Brookfield knowing that he couldn't manage the conflict of interest in the role that he had. The same conflict that this Prime Minister has. And he's supposed to be managing this Prime Minister's conflicts. Every time Brookfield makes money, this Prime Minister is making money. Even the Chief Operating Officer of Brookfield itself admits this very thing. With 1,900 companies that Brookfield owns not covered by this Prime Minister's ethics screen, why won't he just do the thing that Canadians need, give them the confidence that they deserve, and sell his shares in Brookfield?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of deals, last week it was Germany investing $1 billion in Canadian defense technology. A few days ago, it was the Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates securing $70 billion for our industries here. And just today in Ottawa, Finnish Nokia investing $340 billion, supporting thousands of jobs, exporting to over 115 countries, Mr. Speaker. The world is calling, and we are answering.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's conflicts with Brookfield are everywhere. Yesterday, the COO of Brookfield said that when Brookfield does well, the Prime Minister does well. So is it any wonder that this government is helping Brookfield do well, including fast-tracking a Brookfield-owned LNG project and handing $500 million to a foreign space agency partnered with Brookfield? Why won't the Prime Minister end his conflicts and fully divest himself from Brookfield?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, conspiracy theories, imaginary taxes, all a different way to say no to Canada. This is a party that says yes. And guess what? Just today, Nokia said yes to Canada. They invested $340 million in an innovation center. Those are good jobs, Mr. Speaker. 2,600 jobs in Canada, 340 more good jobs. They broke ground today. Why, Mr. Speaker? They're building in Canada, buying in Canada, and believing in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Winnipeg West.
Mr. Speaker, on November 12th, we saw the Build Canada Homes program accelerate affordable housing projects across the country, including a major announcement at Naui Odena in Winnipeg. Approximately 320 new homes, 40% of them below market and developed in partnership with Treaty 1 First Nations, are now set to move forward. This is exactly the kind of progress my constituents in Winnipeg West are looking for. Could the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure update the House on how these Build Canada Homes projects in Winnipeg and other cities will help deliver affordable homes more quickly?
Absolutely. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Winnipeg West for his great question. Great question. Our government is making generational investments in building the homes that Canadians need right now. And this month, Build Canada Homes took a major step in the redevelopment of sites in accelerating affordable housing in Winnipeg, in Ottawa, and in Edmonton. This will add nearly 1,800 affordable homes across Canada, the housing that Canadians need. And will the Conservatives in the meantime support the first-time homebuyers tax? They're stalling it here, preventing first-time homebuyers from accessing $50,000 savings.
The honourable member for Montmorency, Charlevoix. When Brookfield makes money, the Prime Minister makes money. Those aren't our words. Those are the words of Brookfield's Chief Operating Officer. That's what he told us in committee yesterday. And if that wasn't bad enough, we found out that 95% of businesses owned by Brookfield are not even covered in the Prime Minister's ethics screen. And the people who are supposed to oversee the ethics screen don't even have access to the full list of businesses. Mr. Speaker, can someone explain to us why Brookfield's interests seem to perfectly align with the Liberal budget tabled last week? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, our friends across the way are continuing to enjoy being a bit conspiracist. Now, as the member likely knows full well, the Code of Ethics, which MPs and parliamentarians must abide by, is thorough, and the Prime Minister must follow that Code of Conduct and Ethics.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the government is letting Canadian Airlines violate the human rights of people with disabilities. This time, it's WestJet, who put in place arbitrary weight restrictions, preventing people with motor vehicles from flying. The result? Denying people with disabilities the right to travel safely for work, education, or to visit loved ones. When will the Liberals close loopholes in the Accessible Canada Act, uphold disability rights, and hold corporate executives accountable when they violate these rights?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course, we have an ongoing dialogue with Canada's transportation companies about ensuring the mark of a great society is the space and the ability for all members of that society to participate in it. And we obviously want the transportation sector to be very reflective of that great generosity in Canada. We have a proud record on this side of the House and renewing and reaffirming our commitment to accessibility in Canada. We'll continue to do that, and we'll do that in partnership with the transportation sector.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Danielle Smith is making an unprecedented attack on healthcare in this country. If she is allowed to get away with privatization, it will be the beginning of the end of public, universal, single-payer healthcare in this country. And it is central to Canadian identity. And Alberta healthcare workers are calling for the government to protect healthcare, to enforce the Canada Healthcare Act. Will the Prime Minister protect public healthcare and enforce the law in this country, or will he just take a photo op with Daniel?
L'Honorable Ministre de la Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, our new government will always protect the Canada Health Act and Canada's universal healthcare system. That's why Budget 2025, our new government is investing in our publicly funded healthcare system, including through generational investments of $5 billion to build healthcare infrastructures. We have a collaborative approach with all provinces and territories to ensure all Canadians continue to have an equitable access to medically necessary care based on their medical needs, not their ability to pay. Thank you.
And that concludes the question period for today. I know you're disappointed, but it'll be back tomorrow.
So, gang, that was pretty fun. The first couple of rounds were pretty fun. Mark Carney had his ass handed to him. Like, Pierre is too sharp for that guy. I wish Poilievre would open up just once en anglais, but what are you going to do? Thank you all for tuning in. My name's Aaron. Like, share, subscribe. We had a couple of technical difficulties. I don't know what that is about. I'm going to have to call my cable company, see what's up. Thank you all so much for tuning in. You guys crack me up. I don't know if I could watch this stuff by myself, like, because it would make me too angry, but we make jokes and we play and make fun of them, and we keep it pretty clean, right? But they're worth making fun of, and at least it does crack me up hanging out with you guys doing this. My name's Aaron. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you to the moderating team. We've got our Captain Kirk, our Lady Rhonda, and everyone else that comes and hangs out with us on a regular basis. Love having it. Love having a group to hang with and watch Question Period. Let people know about our pre-show. I'm not going to stop doing that. It's going to be scheduled for the half hour, but if I have enough content, I'll start as early as I can. Today we were able to start very early. So there'll always be something to watch, and we snap right over into Question Period after that. Anyhow, we'll wrap it up right there. Thank you all for tuning in. It's only going to get hotter between, I think the last day of Parliament is December 12th. So in the next couple of weeks, it's going to heat up. Can't wait to see what happens. Carney's such a wuss. It's embarrassing. Imagine shooting off like that and then running to the bathroom to whatever, hide or screw with the stream service. Who knows? They don't want people seeing this stuff. They count on their voters not seeing it. If I knew a way to get more Liberal voters just to watch a couple of episodes, not to participate in the chat because they would become very defensive and feel really stupid, but once they would see the chat along with the stuff that's going down, how could you not tell that they're lying straight to your face? Boggles my mind. Anyhow, thank you all so much for watching. Back here tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll have a great pre-show. That is what we'll be working towards. And check out one of the other videos that'll be coming down the tubes this evening. That's it. We're out. Thank you all so much for watching. We're going to go out on Romper Room, of course, because that's how we do it. It's more fun that way. Thank
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romp Room.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.